Hi there, I'm Chad Trofgruben. This video is part of a larger course on rigging and animating characters in Adobe Character Animator. Use the playlist to navigate the sections as they're uploaded. This course was recorded in 2018 and originally ran on Udemy, where it received strong reviews. I'm archiving it here because the material is still useful. If you want the course files, check the link below. You'll also find a link to the updated version with more current information. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something. For this video, I'm working off of 24 Chad Character Animator. Feel free to open up this file. Between videos, I went through and turned down the walk cycle so it's no longer animating out. And I also reestablished the draggable points, and I made my head no longer independent. And I kept the corrections from the previous video though with the elbows, so that way they bend a little bit better. So now, we want to jump over to the record panel to record our animation. Luckily, we've used the record panel numerous times in this course to test out our rig, so hopefully all this will be second nature to you by now. Let's come over here and click on record. Now, when you go to record, just as a quick refresher, you're going to see a preview of the rig that you have on your timeline, or rigs if you have multiple on your timeline. You can see on the bottom panel is the timeline, and this is where we can map all the actions that we animate out. If we click on that bottom asset on the timeline, it gains you access to the behaviors on the right side where your properties are. In here, you can see we have all of our behaviors lined up, which we've talked about before. We talked about adjusting universal behaviors as well as your layer-specific behaviors right down there. And this also allows us to set up what we want to animate out right away or right now. And here you can see we have these red dots. The red dots signify armed for record. So in this session, if I were to hit record, my face, the lip syncing, and the triggers and the walk, which isn't being used right now, would be recorded. But as you can see, I can easily turn it off just by clicking on that red dot. Now, the good thing about this is you don't have to do everything at once. You can record in phases. We could focus on the face and lip syncing first, and the triggers, in this case, the glasses if we wanted to. And then we could go over to the dragger, re-enable that, and then we could build up the hand poses. And then we could go and enable the eye gaze, which is disabled right now, and then we could really hone in on those and make sure that they're correct. And we could just keep going in that fashion. So let's give this a try. I'm just going to come over here to my timeline, and you have standard timeline tools, your duration, you can stop, you can play, and you can record, which is we're going to animate out basically what's going on. And we also have the ability to refresh the workspace right over here if things are not quite working. If you updated your rig and you're not seeing the result, you can try using this. You can also show your mesh. We can do a stream live option, which I'm not going to do. And you can come over here to the background color. Now, I didn't really touch on this before, and now is a great time because we don't want it in our shot. This PSD file has an off-white background that came with it. And I've been using that up to this point just because it's easy on the eyes. But I'm now going to go over here to the rig really quick and go all the way down to the bottom where my layers are and then just hide the background. I can now come back to record, and that should then have disabled that background, and you can see our character has now transparency behind him. And I can come in here and toggle that background color. And I'm going to use the fourth option, which basically has a good medium. It's not black. It's actually some sort of, it's almost like it's gray or something. But I think it works for our purposes. So with that said, we can now come down here and start recording. So we'll hit record. You'll get a countdown, and then hi guys, my name is Chad Trofgruben, and here you're going to learn all about Character Animator. Okay, now we can hit the stop button or record again, or spacebar also works, or Command R, Control R, and it will stop the animation. Now you're going to see we have our audio on the top. That's the audio that was recorded, and you can set up what microphone is being recorded from in your settings, which I actually covered in the first section. But here's your audio, and then underneath that you have your puppet, but it's been updated now. You're going to see we have some new channels here. We have the face and we have lip sync that have been captured. Now we can preview this by just scrubbing back or using the timeline tools, and we can hit play.
Hi guys, my name is Chad Trofgerben, and here you're going to learn all about Character Animator. Okay.
So now you can see I have that part at the end where I'm like, okay.
Now we can hit.
One thing about this, since it's a timeline, is we can come in here and just click and drag, and we can actually trim that stuff up if we no longer want it. So I can just come in there and trim it up just like that. Get rid of it entirely. Come in here and just remove the visemes up to that point. Now, you can also zoom in on the timeline to see, what's going on in more detail. And you can see we have our visemes right down there as an example. And I'll get to that in the next video. I think we should put that into its own thing. But as you can see, our actions have been recorded and we can go in and manipulate. Basically, you can trim and you can also move them around. So if you wanted this all to occur later on the timeline, you can just come in here and move all that stuff. And then we have just him hanging out here for these few seconds, and then all of a sudden,
Hi guys.
And that's how that works. Now again, if you want to stack actions, it's very doable. Let's come back here to the beginning, and this time I'm going to disable face, lip sync, and triggers, and just put on dragger. Now, that's the only thing that will be tracked. I can hit the record button at 0, and it's not going to override anything because we have those things disabled. So let's go ahead and just hit record.
Hi guys, my name is Chad Trofgerben, and here you're going to learn all about Character Animator.
Okay, that was terrible, but hopefully you can get the idea here. Now the other thing it'll do is it will also record audio again here. As you can see, I don't need that second audio. I'm just going to come in here and delete it, in fact. But you can see now that dragger has been added. It's only animating one handle, and I can come in here and take a look.
Hi guys, my name is Chad Trofgerben, and here you're going to learn all about Character Animator.
So as you can see, animating in Character Animator is a little bit different than other animation software, especially with the camera and being able to just kind of stack things as you go. And you do have less control in some ways and more control in other ways. It's kind of interesting. But anyway, we're going to pause here, and up next, we're going to dive a little further into the timeline and look at how we can alter visemes. For this video, I'm working off of 25 Chad Character Animator. Feel free to open this up if you wish to reference my final result. We're now going to go in and look at how we can alter visemes. Now, visemes are basically phonemes, and as we use the microphone or whatever we do when it comes to recording, in this case we armed the recording using the audio, we were able to record the visemes or the mouth poses. So we're just going to zoom in here on the timeline, and you're going to see as we zoom in, it's going to show us which visemes it's actually pulling in at what points on the timeline. So here is a good example. Right away when it starts, it picked up some audio, and you can see it's doing the ooh sound or the W sound, and then it goes to the grin. What we can do here is come in and click on that W right there, and you can right click and then choose if you want to add in a different pose, or in this case, put some silence. So let's go ahead and put some silence because there's really no need to have that there. But now you can go in and start drilling down and seeing just how accurate this is.
Hi guys, my my name is Chad Trofgerben, and here you're going to learn.
So when it says like in here, maybe right here, I want to change the mouth pose because I want some variety. I could always right click and then go to AH as an example, and that will change it for that duration and it will raise it up. Come back here. And you can see it makes that change and everything is looking pretty good. Ultimately, it does a great job with lip syncing. And whenever I'm going through and lip syncing for one of my productions, I never have much trouble. I very rarely have to go through and make corrections, actually. It's quite remarkable how accurate it is. And so you do have control, but I think you'll find that it does a good job. And also keep in mind, you can come down here and trim. So if certain phonemes trigger at certain times and you don't really want them to happen at that exact moment, but you don't want it to be silenced all the time, you can go in and definitely trim that stuff up. And so that's what's great about this, is even though once you place your phonemes or visemes down using your voice or the actor's voice, if things aren't quite right, and they sometimes might not be, different voices sound different. The software might have a harder time picking up certain accents. I'm not really sure. But if you do run into that issue, then you can definitely make those changes on the timeline. For this video, I'm working off of 26 Chad Character Animator. Feel free to open up this file. One thing you can do, and I actually use Character Animator more for this than probably anything else, is taking outside audio files, bringing them onto the timeline, and then having Character Animator analyze that audio and then lip sync your character to it. I actually end up just bringing in my mouths into Character Animator and nothing else, and then just animating out those mouths. And then I'll export those out as image sequences and then import them into the animation software that I'm using, whether it's After Effects or Moho or whatever. And from there, I have perfectly synced mouths, and it saves me a ton of time. So again, even if you're not really comfortable animating with the camera or dragging things with your mouse, this feature alone, I feel, makes Character Animator worth it. So the first thing you'll want to do is have a rig on your timeline that is ready for animation or at least for lip syncing. And in this case, we're just going to use the character we've been using. All I did was just clear all the animation we put in for him when we were testing things out in the previous videos. So we can come over here to the project panel and we can double click on it or use Command I or Control I to import an audio file. And you'll have this in your exercise files. We're just going to find it and then choose Import. So you'll see it brings it in differently. It doesn't bring it in as a puppet or scene. It actually recognizes it as audio. And from here, we can just drag and drop this down onto the timeline. And you can see we have this audio sample set up, and it looks just like it did when we actually recorded audio from our microphone to the software itself. But what we can do now is click once on the puppet. Now go up to your file menu, locate timeline, and you'll see we have an option called Compute Lip Sync from Scene Audio. So whatever audio file you have on scene, it's going to be computed. So let's go ahead and click that. Now, if you get this error, that's because I forgot to arm my puppet for lip sync. So that's the other thing. Make sure you have your puppet set to lip sync before this can work. Now we can come up here and do this again. So it will take a moment depending on how long the audio is and how detailed everything is. But you can see here, it computed the audio, and we now have visemes right on the timeline. So let's go ahead and play this out and see what it does.
Hi guys, my name is Chad Trofgerben, and you are watching how to learn Character Animator.
Again, it does a fantastic job. The good thing about this is, let's say it doesn't do the most accurate job. Maybe there's some parts that are, not quite right. You can always come down here, as I showed you before, and just go in and modify those visemes and get it as accurate as you need it. So again, a really neat and cool feature. I use this feature the most when it comes to Character Animator, and I highly recommend you check it out. Even if you are using other software and you really have no intention to use this other than for lip syncing, I find it to be well worth it. For this video, I am inside of Character Animator working off of 27 CHAD Character Animator. Feel free to open up this file. What I want to do is now work with multiple scenes and puppets, because you can do more than just add in a character. You can add in scenes, props, multiple characters, and work with multiple scenes. So first, let's come over here to the project panel, and you'll see I already have some files here. We have our scene, we have the puppet, we have some recordings that came in while we were working through this, and then we have that audio sample I imported. Let's go ahead and add some organization to this. Luckily, with Character Animator, we can come down here on our project panel and make folders. So I'll make a new folder, and I'm going to name this one Audio, and then hit Enter. And I can just take the recordings folder and the audio sample and put it right into the audio folder. And then you can collapse it. And we can create a couple more folders here now. We'll name one Scenes. Make sure I bring it outside of folder 1. And then I'll name this one Puppets. And then hit Enter. So now I can bring CHAD into Puppets and then Scene 5 into Scenes. And this isn't required, but I'm just showing you that you can organize in the project panel if you wish. So now, let's say we want to bring in a background for our character to inhabit. I can double click to import. Command-I or Control-I also works. And in my exercise files, I will locate bg.png and then choose to import. Now this will bring it in as a puppet based on the image, but we can just use it as a background image. We don't have to do anything with it, although we could come in and do some things with it if we wanted to. But I'm just going to create a fourth folder, name it Backgrounds, and then we can just bring it in just like that. You could also bring in a background into the Photoshop document, let's say of one of your characters, and then you could just keep it outside the puppet group. That way it's independent. But we can also do it this way as well. Now with that BG file, I can just click and drag and bring it below our character on the timeline. And you can see now, once it updates in real time, we now have our character on set, ready to go. And again, that's just one small thing you can do. And you would never have to deal with the background again. You could also come in here and just remove all behaviors for the background, even though that isn't going to track anyway, since there's really nothing that it can track with. But we can go ahead and just for the sake of safety, remove all of that. So that way we don't have to worry about it. So now I could come in with my camera and my audio here. Now let me just set my pose. Guess I should have put my glasses off before I recorded, but that's okay. And then we could come in here and let's just making sure we're on the CHAD puppet. And you'll see once I click off that CHAD puppet, it no longer talks. I have the audio triggering right now, but I'm on BG. Then you go to CHAD puppet, hey, then it triggers and you can see what it's doing. But I can come in here and we can enable the face and just do different things like that. So then I could come in and just record, just to demonstrate here. Hey guys, my name is Chad. I am inside of what appears to be a place, and it is the best place ever, and I am also recording a tutorial, which is going to be the best tutorial ever. Okay, so you got that, and you can stop. So we have some stuff down. We have dragger, we have the face, we have lip sync. We can come back here and play it out.
Which is going to be the best tutorial ever.
Okay, so not my best animation, although I might win a couple awards, I'm not really sure. Anyway, so you now have that in place. And if we collapse this, you can see we can easily come in here and organize this. If you don't want to look at that puppet's actions, you can just easily clear that. But you can see here too that we would have background actions if that had any actions, but we don't have that. So you can come in here and easily pick between these two and choose what you want to arm for record in that moment. Now, we could also bring in other actors into the scene. And I'm just going to do this kind of cheaply. I didn't make another character for this, so we're just going to do basically a second Chad character, but just colored a little bit differently, just to show you here. So let's say you're working on a second puppet, and I'm actually just going to duplicate this Chad puppet with Command D. Now I can double click to go back into this new puppet, and I'm not going to do much of a change to this one, again, just for the sake of simplicity, but I'm going to go over here to the source for the puppet, click on it, and then locate Chad black and white, and then choose to replace. And you can see right here that the name has been updated. We have now Chad 20 and Chad 26 black and white. So now I could come over here to my scenes and double click on scene 5 to go back to that. And you can see we have our puppet here, and that's going good. But now I could go over here to puppets, click and drag, and bring black and white down onto the timeline. And there we go. So now you can see we have the black and white puppet right here, and we are looking at its behaviors. Now first, it's walking. We're going to just get rid of the walk here. Actually, I'll come down here to, I believe it's start immediately. I can just set it to left and right for right now. That way we don't have to worry about it. But as you can see, it's doing something different. Now, I'm just going to come in here and I want to locate the properties for this. That would be the transform properties. So I can just come down here and scale this back. And you can see now we have this second puppet here. And we're just going to come over here. Actually, we'll just come back like that. So apparently I have a ghost in this backstage that looks like me. That's what we'll say. So I want to just do something different really quick to demonstrate you can have multiple things. I'm going to come in here and arm walk for record, and left and right is fine. The walk is probably not really great in terms of what it's going to do, but I also want to come down here and make sure I set my body speed to, let's just say 30%. That will work. And I want to go back here to the beginning of the timeline, and we're going to make sure we are on Chad black and white, and then we're going to record. So as that's going on, I'm going to come in. I'm using my arrow keys, and you can see that this is kind of weird, but that just happened. Okay, so I'm sorry guys, I just got emotional for a moment. That was probably the best thing I've ever done. But if we come back here for a moment, you can see that it's all here. The new audio is in place. Probably a little bit messy hearing it because there's all this overlaying audio. But you can see that you can easily come in here and modify this stuff, and we can separate out the Chad black and white actions from just the original Chad actions. And again, you can see here that if we go through the animation, we can play this all out. If I wanted to trim up whatever this was, or if I wanted to offset the motion, we could, let's say, increase this and push this animation out so that it comes later. And again, it really just comes down to layering this stuff and building it up and doing what you want to do. And you can add multiple characters very easily as well as backgrounds. Now, the other thing I want to show really quick is you can work with multiple scenes. I'm not going to really do much with this, but we could come in here and you have to first have a puppet that you want to make a scene with, or a scene in this case. But if I click on the Chad black and white puppet, I can make a scene, and that will set up just having an asset there, and you don't have to necessarily keep that asset. But let's say you are building a large episode or a movie, and you want more than just one shot or set. this is the way to do it. So you could build up your backstage scene, in this case, since that's what we have going on here. And then once you're done, you can move on to the next part in your script or your outline or your storyboard, build that scene up, and then animate it out. And then once it's all done, you can queue it up and export it out inside of Adobe Media Encoder. So that way you can queue up all the scenes, sit back and relax, and you won't have to worry too much about it. But anyway, we're going to pause here and we'll move on to some other final things just to touch up. And then I'll leave you to animate your masterpiece. For this video, I'm working off of 28 CHAD Character Animator. Feel free to open up this file. I now want to show you how you can import image sequences and incorporate them into your animations. To do this, simply come up here to File, and then choose Import Cycle. Here, you can locate the images I've provided. They'll be in a folder called Smoke. Just click once on Smoke 000 and then choose Import. Like After Effects, you can import multiple images to create a sequence. And here, if I were to jump over and double click on CHAD Ready, and I'm just going to come in here and remove this audio just because it's kind of annoying, but we're going to just come in and grab that smoke. Let me just hide everything here and bring it above background. And you can see it's animating out immediately. Now that might be something you want. However, let's jump over here to Rig really quick. And I want to double click on Smoke Cycle. We get access to all of the phases of the smoke, but we do have different options. And here we have behavior set for cycle layers on the right. And if I drop this down, we'll get access to more options. So here we can choose if we want to start the loop immediately or when triggered. You could have the sequential order of layers, so top to bottom. But if you want to go in reverse, you can go from bottom to top and it'll start at the end of the animation and then work its way back. You can choose if you wanted to advance every one frame or more, so you could have it skip frames if you wish, or you could have it stationary by advance every 0 frames. You can choose how many times you want to cycle, so you could have it once or continuously. And if you have it continuously, you can have it go forward and reverse, so that way you can sort of hide the fact if it's not perfectly loopable. You can choose if you want to hold the frame on the last layer, so maybe you just want to play once and then stop. You can do that. On the trigger end, you can choose if you want to let the cycle finish, or you can have it stop. So once it's done, you can have it abruptly stop or wait for it to finish its thing. And you have some other options down here dealing with your triggers. So ultimately, you have a lot of options when it comes to dealing with your cycles inside of Character Animator. And it is great to add more to scenes. You can definitely do a lot with PNG sequences. And so just by exporting out elements from other software, you can enhance your scenes directly inside of Character Animator. When it's finally time to export, you have a few options. You can come up here to the File menu, go to File, and then right below Import is Export. And here, you can choose to export a video via Adobe Media Encoder. And even though it says video, you can do any file format that's available in Media Encoder. You can choose to export out a PNG sequence in a WAV, which is useful for me when I'm doing lip syncing. Usually I'll just bring in a mouth or a head, lip sync it out, and then I'll export it out as a ping sequence, bring it into my software, and then keep animating. You can use Adobe Dynamic Link. You can also export out a still frame, and you can go to your live options as well. But here, I'm just going to go with video via Adobe Media Encoder, and we can come in here and we can choose where we want to save this. And I'll just put it right in here inside of my Udemy exercise files. That way, you can check this out. And again, it's a really rough animation, but we'll just put it in here for you anyway. And I'll go ahead and hit save. And what this will do then is transfer that information over to Media Encoder, and then you can go through the process of setting up how you want this to encode. So I can come down here. Don't mind main scene. We can just remove that. Here is my file. You can come in here and choose any file format you wish. We can just use H.264. I'll match my source for that. And once again, we can choose where to save it. It's still in the exercise files, so we'll just click Save. And then I can click the Start Queue button, and it will go through the process of rendering this file out. So that way you can take it to the next step. So when it comes to Character Animator, just know that Adobe Media Encoder links with it. And so now you can export your scenes out, combine them in another software, and complete your masterpiece.
You made it to the end. That's awesome. I hope you had fun and learned something. If you want to learn more, or perhaps you jumped into the middle and need to backtrack to previous lessons, you can always check out the playlist for this course. Also, if you need help and want to go further, the course files are always available on Udemy. Plus, we have the updated version of this course available on there as well. All of that is detailed in the description box below. Thanks for watching.